Have you ever run in the opposite direction to which God has instructed you to go? How did it work out for you? What lesson did you learn from it? This is the situation with Jonah. Jonah was a prophet or a messenger of God. He was given a difficult and challenging assignment. He chose to run away, but he still couldn't find peace. This is part 2 of a 6-part series on running away, but still restless. In this lesson, we find out how Jonah ends up after running away. Our key text is found in Jonah chapter 4, verse 11, the New King James Version, and it says, "Should I not pity Nineveh, that great city in which are more than 120,000 persons who cannot discern between their right hand and their left, and much livestock?" Again, that's Jonah 4:11, New King James Version. Our title for part 2 is Running Away. Jonah was an amazingly successful preacher. Anointed by God, he had a strong gift for influencing others to change their ways and follow the true and living God. However, initially, when God instructed him to preach to a special group of people who were on the wrong track, he didn't want to go. We don't know what Jonah was doing before God called him to preach, but whatever Jonah was doing, apparently God's call interrupted his life in a big way. Jonah failed to recognize that any task God gives us to perform is easy. God promises us that his yoke is easy and his burden is light. Matthew 11:30. In other words, when God gives us an assignment, we can be sure that when we hook up with him, our load is going to be far lighter because he bears most of the weight. However, Jonah, assuming that answering God's call would be more challenging than what he was doing, Jonah decided to find his own rest. He did that by running in the opposite direction to where God was directing him to go. In Jonah 1, we discover that God directed Jonah to go to the city of Nineveh. Did he go? No. He went in the opposite direction, hoping to find peace and rest from God's call. Jonah finds himself in a bad situation. Listen to what happened. I'm reading from Jonah 1, the Clear Word translation. Jonah refuses to go to Nineveh. One day, the Lord said to Jonah, the son of Amittai, "Go to Nineveh, that great Assyrian city, and speak against it. Tell them that I know all about their wickedness." Jonah didn't want to take on the responsibility that the Lord had given him. So he went to Joppa, which was in the opposite direction, to find a cargo ship going to Spain. He paid his fare and went on board to get away from the Lord. A storm arose at sea. Soon after the ship had left, the Lord sent a strong wind to blow on the sea. It created such a violent storm that the ship was in danger of breaking apart. The sailors were terrified, and each man cried out to his God. They threw some of the cargo and equipment overboard to lighten the ship. Meanwhile, Jonah, exhausted from his haste, had gone below deck to lie down and fell sound asleep. The captain found him in his bunk, shook him awake, and said, "How can you sleep in such a storm? Get up and pray to your God as we have to ours. Maybe he's the one who can quiet this storm and save us and our ship." But the storm didn't let up. Finally, the soldiers said to each other, "Let's draw lots to see who is to blame for this storm." So they drew lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So they questioned him, Are you the one to blame for all this? What country are you from? What is your nationality? Why are you on this ship? And Jonah answered, I'm a Hebrew from the country of Israel, and I worship the God of heaven who made the sea and the land. Then he told them that he was running away from God and why. When the men heard this, they said, do you realize what you've done? Why did you try to run away from your God? Jonah thrown into the sea. Meanwhile, the storm grew worse. So they asked Jonah, what should we do to make this storm stop? And Jonah said, throw me overboard and it will stop. It's my fault that you're caught in this storm because I ran away from God. The sailors didn't want to do that. They tried as hard as they could to turn the ship around and head back to home. But the storm grew even worse and they were all in danger of losing their lives. They cried out to the God of heaven and earth saying, oh Lord, please don't let us die because of this man and don't punish us for throwing him overboard. You, oh Lord, are the one who brought on this storm. So throwing this man overboard is your decision, not ours. Then they picked up Jonah and threw him overboard. Immediately, the wind stopped and the sea grew calm. This made the sailors even more afraid of the Lord, and they offered what they had as a sacrifice to him and promised to serve the God of Jonah. Now, the Lord appointed a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the stomach of that fish for part of 3 days and 3 nights. So Jonah goes in the opposite direction to where God had told him to go. He doesn't even stop to talk with God about his assignment, as many of the other Bible prophets had done when God called them to be a messenger. In 2 Kings 14:25, we find that this is not the first time that Jonah has been called to speak for God. In this case, however, Jonah appears to have done what the Lord had asked him to do, but this time he didn't. Why? Based on historical and archaeological records, here are some reasons why Jonah may not have wanted to go to Nineveh. The historical and archaeological records indicate that at the time that Jonah ministered in Israel, the Neo-Assyrians dominated the ancient Near East during the 8th century BC. Today, they would be the people of northern Mesopotamia, who became the center of one of the great empires of the ancient Middle East. They were located in what is now northern Iraq and southern Turkey. According to historians, they operated with no mercy. The Bible in 2 Kings 18 and Isaiah 36 tell just how these Ninevites were. They were considered extremely cruel. Can you imagine? God instructs you to go to a group of gang members known to be heartless, vicious, and cruel, with instructions that they need to change their ways or face destruction. What would you do? God was sending Jonah into the very heart of these evil and sadistic people. Can you blame Jonah for not wanting to go? So running away from God, Jonah found himself in a worse of a mess, an even more dangerous situation. He was cast into a stormy sea and swallowed by a big fish. Is this the end of Jonah? Check out part 3 of this 6-part series on running away, but still restless.